This is Bullets with AWR Hawkins, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here once again is AWR Hawkins.
Folks, welcome back to Bullets with AWR Hawkins. It's a Breitbart News podcast focused on the Second Amendment, guns, gun rights. I have a guest, Yehuda Remer, with me today. He has written a book on gun safety. Really, it's a book to help you teach your children gun safety, and kind of book that I believe is needed, to be honest with you. The kind of book that it does what the left always claims they want. You know, we have to have gun safety. Well, here's the book to do it. Here's a book where a father, rather than embracing a gun control worldview, can embrace instilling principles into his children on how to properly use guns. So, Yehuda, great to have you with us, and talk to us a bit about your book, the name of it, and different things. I know it's Saftey On is the name, but tell us a bit about the book.
So the book is called Saftey On. It's an introduction to the world of firearms for children, and it follows a give or take anywhere from 7 to 9-year-old boy who wants to emulate his father. It's a perfect day for that, today being Father's Day, and wants to be like his father. And he just talks about different gun safety protocols that you take when dealing with firearms and living with them in the home. And it takes it step by step, whether living it, having cleaning the guns, living with them in the home, gun range. It just covers all aspects of gun safety.
That's incredible. You know, now, Yehuda, you don't know this. There's no way you could know this because you and I haven't talked before. But my grandfather's form of exercise was shooting. When he was done working, he would go shooting. Whereas today, in this climate, a lot of people, their hobby is they'll go to the gym or they'll go rock climbing or do whatever. He would take his handgun out and go shooting. My father began to go shooting with him, and my father's hobby was to go shooting. And of course, I began shooting with my dad. And so when I hear you talk about that book, I see the book, it's almost like you've written a book to enable that type of world to continue and to hopefully encourage other fathers to do that. Is that what, am I saying that right?
Well, yeah, 100%. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I grew up in a very apolitical home. I'm an Orthodox Jew, so, unfortunately, many Jews have a very negative perception of guns and gun ownership. And I grew up not even knowing about guns, just understanding that the only people who were allowed to have guns on them were police officers, military personnel, and bad guys. Nobody else. The thought of a civilian owning a firearm and actually carrying it on him for self-defense purposes was so foreign to me. And that's another reason why I wrote the book, is I want my children, I moved to Texas, I live here now, and I want my children to understand that firearms are only a tool. And you can have a great time with them, you can go out plinking, whatever you want, just going to the range, having a good time. But it's also a tool. It's a useful tool that can help protect life, and it's something that I wanted to instill in my children. And to start that, you need to start with safety. Right. You cannot introduce a child to guns without introducing them to safety first. It just does not work.
Right. And just to make your point, and you made it so clearly, but it's the same way. A knife is a tool. I can't leave a knife with a young kid until I know that kid has been trained on when to use that knife, how to keep that knife either closed or in the sheath, where to store that knife so he's not accidentally in danger. It's not something he can fall on. I'm just saying your point is so clear, and it's so pertinent for our time, because the gun is a tool. And like any tool, the use of that gun begins with understanding how to use it, how to store it, how to carry it, how to load it, how to break it down, so on and so forth. I think what you're doing is phenomenal. Now, have you been getting feedback? Have you been getting feedback on the book that encourages you?
Yeah, definitely. I've been having a lot of great feedback, not just from my friends, but since I'm kind of a no-name within the gun industry, I've been reaching out to certain people, and I've been really getting great feedback. Colonel Alan West has endorsed my book. Alan Gottlieb at the Second Amendment Foundation, they've endorsed my book. Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, Larry Vickers, and a bunch of others. And people are just really rallying around the book because there's nothing like it on the market.
Right. And that's exactly what caught my attention with the book, because there is nothing like it. And when you're getting the endorsements of people like Alan West and groups like Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership and the Second Amendment Foundation, I know you're doing something right. Let me ask you a question. How could people get the book? How could people, after they hear this podcast and they think, you know what, I want to read that book and I want to read it with my kids, how can they get it?
The best place to get it is Amazon.
Right on.
It's, depending on the day, it goes from $14.95 down to $12 something. So really depends on the day, but that's really the best place to get it. And it is, for those interested, it is Amazon Prime, so you can get it quickly if you still need a Father's Day present, say it got lost in the mail or something.
Right on. Well, Yehuda, it was great having you on the podcast, and I'm serious. Your book it's needed, and I'm glad it's out there. And you're 100% right. There's nothing else like it on the market, and I'm glad that you've written this. And I hope it means that a lot of other families will grow up the way I grew up, with my dad teaching me these things. I hope a lot of other fathers will begin to see the importance of teaching their children these things. So thank you for what you've done.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. You all, this has been Bullets with AWR Hawkins. We'll be back right after this.
This is Bullets with AWR Hawkins, a Breitbart.com podcast. Here once again is AWR Hawkins.
Folks, welcome back to Bullets with AWR Hawkins. In all seriousness, having Yehuda on, was it not incredible? I mean, I don't know if you can feel my excitement, or I don't know if you can hear it, is what I should say. But see, something I spoke to him about off air after I spoke with him, something I spoke to him about is, I see a lot of people write gun books because gun books sell. They just sell because people love freedom. And so the topic of firearms, they think, well, they could write a book, and if they write that book, they're going to make some quick money. But I find out that a lot of the people that write books on guns, I'm not calling names here, I'm just saying I know there are some of the books I've read, and the people writing the books don't understand guns. They just fell into the topic. They got lucky. It was based off of a news story they covered, so they were able to write a book on guns, and they don't know what they're talking about. All right, but when I was speaking with him, and you can hear that he understands firearms. And I spoke to him, as I say, off air. He's telling me about his next book. And the next book proves even more, not simply that he's writing on guns, but that he understands guns. That's what we need. Those are the types of voices we need. So keep his book in mind. Order his book. You know, as I told him, I grew up in the kind of family that he wants to make with this book. He wants to turn families into families where the father takes the son shooting, teaches the son to respect the gun, how to clean the gun, how to load the gun, how to buy the proper ammunition. He wants to teach fathers to recognize the importance of teaching those things. And folks, you just can't go wrong with adopting those types of habits as a parent, because you want to pass on a tradition, right? Don't you? And what's better than the tradition of freedom? In all seriousness, freedom.